Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today we are finishing up the Shira marathon with Shira and the Princess of Power season 4.
Woo.
And the last season, as of right now, we do know there's another one coming at some point.
Hope so.
There is another season. They
After this
confirmed that.
season's ending, I would hope so.
hmm Yeah, well, we are not in spoilers yet, so hush hush about that. But yeah, this is the latest season so far. We do know that there's a continuation, but as of right now, this is what we get. So, season 4, the most recent season.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a month and something old now that I look at it.
Not
Uh,
too
what
old.
did what did you think about this latest season?
So, as said, I binged all these seasons very quickly together, right? Like, after season 4 came out, I think in that same month, maybe a week or two after it came out in November, I was inundated with enough of it on Tumblr, especially Catradora, that I decided, fine, you've got me interested. I'll watch the show, and so
This is
binged
how
it
you
all.
get Wolf to watch shows, people. There's a lesbian couple, maybe he's in.
Specifically, Cute Cat Girl. I have a
Okay,
type.
fair,
Don't
fair
forget
enough, fair
Ruby.
enough. Fair enough.
Although in that one, I do like Raven more. So, Cute Burb Mom. Give me that as
Okay.
well, and then I'll definitely have a type.
Mhm.
But
Well,
yeah, like
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Blake is better, but that's this topic for another day.
I mean, you're not entirely wrong, but you're not right. But anyways, yeah, Shira. After having like binged everything all in one go, I even now kind of going back and going through a few of the episodes to kind of refresh. I definitely think season 4 is my favorite, hands down.
You know,
I think
it's
season 4
funny
has a lot more
because at
powerful
some
moments.
so there's the thing. At some moments, I agree with you,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some stuff in this season that keep me away from calling it my favorite. And it's not really a spoilers, so
Mm-hmm.
you know. eh, Okay, when I'm saying it's not really a spoiler, I'm saying this as you've watched the previous 3 seasons. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
anything beyond the season 3 finale is a spoiler in this context. So, with that
Mm-hmm.
said, as soon as Glimmer becomes queen, she becomes so much worse. Like I
Uh
legit
oh.
hated her this season.
Um, I'll admit I found her more annoying, right?
Okay, annoying is but still, annoying is not good.
No, no,
Annoying is not good.
I agree with you, but I do think there is a purpose for it. Like it does work for the character. I felt right because it comes off as this like she is still learning, she's growing up, and she's had to grow up very quickly, right? So especially all of a sudden and all at once, right? So she is trying to find her footing and her place as a ruler, as queen. And
Okay,
I think it
here's the
works,
thing.
especially with the ending of this season, right? That we get, but we'll get to that in
Here's
a
what
bit.
on that note, on what you say, I get it, but it feels more that that's what the writers tried to achieve rather than what they achieved.
Fair.
Because
There are definitely moments where it doesn't work. I think there are some
yeah, it
specific moments where it does shine through, and you can see right that that's what they're going for, and that I think it does work. And we'll get to the episode later when we start going through episode by episode where I can point that out. But I do think there are moments that it does shine through and does work. However, I do agree there are moments where it got too much, where it felt like they focused on it or just tried too hard with it, and it fell flat.
I'll say, what, I'll say this without getting too much into it because we're not in the spoilers part yet. But I think it starts out. even if not perfect, it starts out fine, but later on it gets way worse.
Yeah, I could see that. At least at parts, yeah, I could definitely see that.
Mhm. So yeah, but so there's this. But other than that, when I say Glimmer is kind of a weak spot, there are plenty of other, you know, there is plenty of stuff that I also like really like in this season.
Hmm.
But then like there's maybe also, and I think you might know what I'm talking about, but there are some episodes here and there which I'm like, we probably could have done without that one, or you know. But then again, what show doesn't have that?
Maybe with one or two, I could maybe see it. I'm very. I don't completely agree with you.
Mhm. Well, I guess from here we can just start the spoilers
But
talk
I mean,
because
yeah,
there's
looking at overall thoughts, I think this was still yet a good season from a good show.
mhm.
Bare minimum.
good good season, but there are some stuff that that drag it down, and even if it's minor stuff, it really hurts it. So, spoilers from here on out, and since this is a new season, relatively new season, again, it's a month old. Um, keep in mind that we're spoiling this all the way. So if you haven't seen the season yet, you can leave in 3, 2, 1. You still here? Okay, let's get into it. Episode 1, the coronation.
Hmm. I think this is a good start off for, like, I know you said Glimmer becomes kind of annoying in this season, but I think this is a good showing of like her adapting to her mother's death for a first episode.
Yeah, like I said, that it starts, that it doesn't start as bad as I think, and it gets worse as the season goes on. This is
Hmm.
what I mean with it's not that bad yet, because this is the aftermath. This is her becoming queen and taking on that responsibility. This is good, and also the fact that Glimmer, Adora, and Bo are going on this mission, and they fight that spider thing, and the way Glimmer beats it is by kind of accepting her mother's death, and
Hmm.
taking over. That's good. That I have zero problems with. That was actually powerful.
Yeah,
It's later on when things start to get messy.
I think we can get to it, but looking at this episode, I love the fact that you have eh, again, like, there's a character development for Glimmer here majorly, but there's also some stuff going on here with Adora as well, and not really knowing how to deal with grief and how to help someone through grief, right? I enjoy that
Mhm.
because you see her like,
Yeah,
hey, everyone
because
act like everything's fine and nothing's wrong, and that's not what Glimmer needs or even wants, for that matter. She doesn't want everyone to pretend like nothing's wrong and everything's okay, because it's not. I like
mhm.
that. I think that gives, I think for a first episode, this does send, like, a good message that it's okay to grieve. You don't have to pretend like everything's okay when it's not.
Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
that's true. That's true. That I really appreciate. And yeah, like you said, it's a message that I keep seeing more and more, that it's okay to be sad sometimes. It's okay to and on the one hand, it is kind of starting to become a message that people are going for, but at the same time, I feel like it's still needed.
Yeah.
Like this is a message that people are still being afraid of this. So you know what? Why not?
It's definitely still a stigma on letting your emotions out and just saying how you feel and being more open with stuff like that, right? There's definitely still a stigma on it that we still haven't got past, and maybe we never will. I don't know, can't say. But it's definitely nice to see the show kind of say, like, hey, that's not okay, don't do that, you know do the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And I feel it's done in a good way because again, it's coming from Adora who's trying to kind of hide all of that and make everything feel like it's all okay and good. And you kind of see where Adora, and you kind of get why Adora is the one who does that because she just doesn't have any experience with it. Like she doesn't
Hmm.
have any experience with many things.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
Okay, and
a
then
good.
we have the
Mhm.
B plot.
Okay, go into it.
So yeah. So while this is going on with the rebellion, we meanwhile in the Shadow Realm, you
Shut.
know,
Time to do
I
the duel.
so basically, with the Horde, there's this thing that Katra lies to Hordak that Entrapta kind of ran away after the entire incident with the portal, and
Hmm.
he's very much hurt.
Yep.
Yeah,
Not much you can say about it at that moment. Like Catra's really losing it at this
mm-hmm.
point, and so she, we saw in the final episode that she lied to Hordak about who let the princesses in the first place. She said it was Entrapta, and
Yeah.
she's now lying to Hordak now that her Entrapta left. She betrayed them all, and you could never have trusted her, right?
But the thing is that before this episode, there was this thing that if there's one person Katra was afraid of, it was Hordak.
Mm.
And in here you can kind of, and here she kind of starts having some sort of advantage against him with the entire with the crystal with the armor crystal.
I think it's
Yeah.
right. She's seen him for what he is, and she thinks
Mhm.
she's stronger than him now, right? Like she believes that she doesn't have any reason to be afraid of him anymore because he's, if anything, no better than she is, right?
Yeah,
And so she's
but that's
willing to
another.
stand, and she's willing to say, "Hey, you need me."
Yeah, and that's another thing I like about this, that until this point you could because now it kind of gives you that feeling that you don't really know who's the main villain here, or
Mm.
who's more dangerous, because before this you knew, okay, Katra maybe dangerous, maybe she has authority over everyone else, but Hordak is the end of it. This is where you cross the line. This she's not going to even bother. But now, even Hordak has like a weakness that she knows of, something she can manipulate,
Mm-hmm.
something that can give her that edge that she wants. And it's like, so who do you really root for? It's who does Adora need to be afraid of more? You don't
But I
know, and I like it.
I would say, like I think Adora would agree with me. I guess you would say if I said Catra, and I say
Mhm.
Catra because, right? I think it also shows in this moment that Catra's done caring as well, right? That she's
Well, but
so.
that's like on a personal level. I mean,
Oh, sure.
in terms of threat to Atiria, then
I would still say Catra in a way because again,
yeah,
like I
but
said,
that's what I'm saying though. That's what I'm saying, that in the previous seasons it felt like, well, Katra is their greatest opponent emotionally, but and Hordak was more because I need to protect the Tyria as Shira. Now when Katra has that advantage over Hordak, it's like, okay, so is Katra now more dangerous to Tyria than Hordak, or is he still the more dangerous thing? Just he has a weakness.
but what I'm trying to say though is that the reason I would pick Catra still yet is because again, like her going up against Hordak in my mind gives off this feeling of, based on everything we've seen from Catra up to this point, like the ending of season 3 and kind of leading up to that, you're at this
Mhm.
position of, or at least Catra's in this position of feeling like she's lost everything, that no one can be close to her, she can't trust anyone, and she's, you see her start to push more and more people away as this season goes on as well. And you even see it in this episode too, right? That she definitely, you're watching a person who's slowly been broken down and is just breaking down more and more as time goes on. But their biggest issue is that they feel like they have nothing left to lose at this point.
Yeah.
And that, in my opinion, definitely makes someone much more dangerous than someone who does.
Mhm. Okay, that's fair. So, shall we move on to episode 2?
Sure.
So, the Valley of the Lost, and this is the this is where stuff gets more interesting, if you
Mm.
ask me, because you know the thing is that every time we learn something new about Mara, it's interesting because what the hell happened there? So, and then, but another thing I like about this regarding that, regarding that plot is that when Glimmer sends the crew to retrieve that ship, they they sent the man, I can't believe I forgot her name, Perfuma.
Yes.
She they send Glimmer sends her with them so that she could like manipulate cactus, which is the desert plant.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea that maybe she's not experienced with every type of plant, and cactus is a bit of a weird thing for her that she's trying to figure out, and
Yeah.
it does lead to a good moment once she does manage to work something with it.
Agreed.
So I like that idea.
Yeah, it was fun. I liked Perfuma and Huntar's back and forth in this episode too. It's definitely two very clashing personalities that managed to learn to work together. That was also fun.
Yep. Hmm.
So yeah, like
And
this is. Oh, go ahead.
this is also in the episode which introduces us to one of my favorite characters this season,
I'm
Double
not
Trouble.
surprised. I'm not surprised you like her, but yes,
Okay, yeah, actually, this is interesting. Why are you not surprised?
it just seemed to me, right. This seemed like a character you would enjoy.
Because she's an actress or something.
Not so much that, it just, to me, like, this came off as a character. I bet HC would like this character. I bet this is
Oh,
probably one of his favorite characters of this season.
okay, you're not wrong, and there are a few reasons for this. And one, the concept is unique. We had characters that all that are dressing that dress up as other characters. But what I like about this character, one, the design is really cool.
Agreed.
Two, two, you are not always sure if this is a female or a male, which one representative, the non-binary people, or transgenders or something.
Yeah,
That
I get you.
could that could be a representation of that, which is you don't really see that in a lot of animated shows.
Which is
It's
fair.
something that's still catching on. So that's cool to see in such a unique way, and with such a unique ability. And you also with the voice, like the voice acting, you can't really tell if it's either. And I like that. But
The
I
VA for
also,
Double Trouble does great, by the way, in my opinion. I really enjoyed their
yeah.
voice for them, for the
Yeah,
character.
like I said, it's one of those voices that you don't really know if it's a male or female, and it helps sell the idea that it can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also when Double Trouble does become something in this episode's case, Katra, it's so accurate. It's
Well, I'm
it's so
fairly sure
accurate.
they have the actual voice actor take over when.
No, 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 no. I'm not talking about the voice. I mean,
Oh,
like in terms of what the other characters see. It's accurate.
ah,
In her fighting style, in her movement, and I think that even Adora thinks it's Catra. So that's really cool. That's a
yeah,
really cool ability and a really good. It's a really cool ability and it's a really cool way of showing it.
yeah.
So yeah, I like
I
Double
saw.
Trouble.
This is one of the things that I saw on Tumblr, right? That made me laugh, kind of, after the
Mhm.
season aired, was that apparently fans had this big thing for She-Ra fans had this big thing of Double Trouble's never going to be able to Trickadora, she knows all of the different the number of freckles on Catra's face, so she would absolutely be able to tell the difference.
Mhm.
Just something that made me laugh after the fact. Like, you were wrong. Good to know. But yeah, like, again, that's just the nonsense that I saw that eventually just decided, all right, fine, I'll watch the show. You've got
Mhm.
me interested, to say the least.
Yeah.
Tumblr did a good thing, I guess.
Mhm. But yeah, this was so Double Trouble is a very cool character,
I
and
love the
like I
intro for
said,
her here. It's a great little, I guess you'd say, fight scene between everyone and everything that's going on.
hmm
And you
yeah,
see Adora take that immediate focus on Catra because you still have that feeling, you still have that connection between these two, where Adora definitely sees Catra as their biggest threat.
mhm. Well, with that, but with that being said, the like I said, we do find out that a bit more about Mara, and we
Nothing
know that
major, I feel like it's just
yeah,
kind of more build up for what we definitely get later on.
mhm. Yeah, but still, the fact that there's like a lead, and the reason I mentioned
Hmm.
this is because we find out a lot more as the season progresses.
This is
So I think.
definitely one of those episodes that I think is more character building than anything else. Like,
Mhm.
it's not super focused on any kind of major plot point. It's just saying, hey, this is, our send off for Huntara for this season because she's going to be busy in the Crimson Waste doing her thing. And, we just see some stuff for Perfuma and some stuff for Double Trouble and Catra and Adora and all of that. And this just sets us up for Double Trouble for the rest of the season as well.
Mhm. Which we get to see in the next episode, if we can move into
Yeah.
that.
Flood Arena.
Mhm. So now, this is the type of episode that I kind of want to see for Adora, and that and now that she's been Shira for a while and she's starting to get the grasp of it, and all of a sudden, and she starts getting more confident. But what if all of a sudden she loses focus, and what that could do? So I like that I like that
Mm.
episode idea for her character.
It shows, just how much she really thinks everything depends on her, like how much she puts on her shoulders, I guess you would say,
Mhm.
which is very good.
But but not only that, it's also it's not just how much she thinks is on her shoulders, but once she does manage to take care of it, how much this can still get to her head. So
Mm.
that's also something.
Um, for me, it's also, my memory's a little bit fuzzy. It's been a little while since I've seen all the episodes. I've not been able to refresh on everything, but if I'm not mistaken, there was a thing here of Catra still kind of dealing with that guilt of
Mhm.
Adora and Freeman and Trapta and everything like that, and I find that really enjoyable.
Yeah,
Like,
that's interesting for a character that for someone who is like, I want the power, I want the thing, and I'll do anything to get it. It is interesting to see that she's not 100% okay with everything she does,
mm,
and she does feel guilty. She does feel maybe this wasn't my best move. Maybe this wasn't what I needed to do. It's interesting.
I,
She's not one dimensional.
I,
That's good.
yeah, I completely agree, and I think it also kind of reinforces that idea that the show's been continuing to reinforce, that Catra's not so much doing this because she wants to or because it's what she enjoys doing. She's doing it a lot of the times out of spite,
Mhm.
just to get back at and kind of prove something.
And also, this could also be that at the end of the day, she was pretty much grown to to hate the rebellion, and that what she's doing for Hodak is basically her life. She
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really know life beyond that. So just how much is she willing to sacrifice and do in order to serve that purpose, and
Mm-hmm.
in the hopes of one day be be matter to someone as like Hordak.
No, that's fair. Again, like it's always been Catra's want to be seen as people's equal, not as someone to serve you, not as someone to be your pet, but she wants to stand side beside people and say like, "Hey, we are equals. We are, there's nothing that separates us, right?" Like that's been her biggest character motivation, I'd feel, right? Is always
Mm-hmm.
people seeing her for who she is, not for what they think she is, and not as
Yep.
something lesser.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Completely agree. But other than that, okay. So the one thing that carries over from this episode is the fact that Double Trouble, in the disguise of a little kid, manages to convince Adora to let her join into the rebellion and act as a spy.
Mm-hmm. Which, you know what, wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I kind of figured, oh god, we're doing the spy thing. This is going to be like, they're going to be super obvious that it's a spy, and the characters are just going to be super oblivious to this fact, and it's going to bother me, isn't it?
I was afraid of that too.
But you know
I
what?
was
It
very
wasn't.
afraid of
They
that.
actually didn't do
Yeah.
the "it's a spy, don't you get it" audience. No, like they respected my intelligence and said, you know what? We know you know she's a spy, but we're going to have her act in a way that makes sense for the
Hmm.
characters. Like you're not watching. We're not trying to fool you or to convince you. We're trying to fool and convince the characters. Good on
Yeah.
you. I like the focus there.
Hmm. That's indeed refreshing.
Like that was handled
So,
well. So I liked that.
mhm. Yep. So with that said, we are moving on to episode 4, Pulse.
Mm-hmm.
Want to take the lead on this one?
Sure. Pulse is an episode where it mostly focuses on Double Trouble. Kind of leads into Double Trouble doing more of her spy thing and how that's affecting the rebellion and how that's really helping out the Horde. And plus, we see new bots in this one. These bots,
Hmm.
being able to basically emit a very powerful pulse.
Yeah.
Haha. So, and that's kind of the
Well,
focus.
the reason. That's the reason I named it, so that we
Mm.
don't need to.
But Bo gets hurt in this episode, and Adora has to heal him, and he's kind of put out commission for the episode. Something I liked in this episode too, by the way, is seeing more of Natessa and Spinnerella, if I'm not mistaken, that's their names.
Hmm.
Something that we've not really seen a lot of. Like we knew they were characters in the show; they've been introduced, but they've been kind of silent, if you will. And this
Yeah.
is, the first time we really get to see and hear them and kind of understand their relationship with one another, right? Which was enjoyable, I thought.
Yeah. Okay. Now this is the point where Glimmer doesn't start being annoying to me in this, but this is the seed. This is the
Hmm.
start of it because her approaching Shadow Weaver, for tips. This I get because Shadow Weaver has turned. She's on the rebellion side now. And also Shadow Weaver taught her father, so I
The
can
rebellion
see.
still showing how bad they are with prisoners, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. But but the fact that Shadow Weaver taught Glimmer's father magic, so I can see why Glimmer, now knowing this, is approaching Shadow Weaver for the same thing. I get that. I understand that. But then when Adora calls her out, and even if I get why Glimmer did it, kind of rightfully so, she, Glimmer just goes into this. Oh, I'm not doing anything with you guys anymore because I'm the queen. So, let me have this. This is my thing. This entire thing of her being left out. It's like, one, you're the queen. You know this was going to happen. Man up, for a lack of a better term, and or you know what, woman up, and then after all of this, it's like, don't be surprised when a friend that tries to protect you calls you out on doing something that's dangerous, because Shadow Weaver's magic did do you bad before. Shadow Weaver's magic, while she taught your father, did cause some troubles with your father. Be a bit more cautious, and you don't need to act all, oh, I'm not doing anything, I'm useless shtick. This has nothing to do with it.
Well, it's I like the fact that Adora calls her out, right? I think it completely belongs and makes sense because Adora has experience with Shadow Weaver as well, and just how manipulative Shadow Weaver can be.
Exactly, that's another thing. You know that Adora has so much experience with Shadow Weaver since she was basically a baby. So it's not that she tells you this in order for you to you can't do anything. She tells you this out of legit concern.
Well, yeah, I think Glimmer hears the concern, but she's kind of in that mindset of it won't happen to me. I've seen what happened to you. I know your experience, so with that experience, it won't happen to me. I can be better than that. I can do better. And I kind of get that feeling, right? I kind of understand where she's coming from in that regard. It doesn't mean it's good. I'm not saying it's a good thing, and I'm not agreeing with what Glimmer does here because it is wrong. But I can see Glimmer's reasoning as to why and how she feels that way, right? She feels like it's not going to happen to me. I'm smarter than that. I know better because of your experience and because of what you've been through and because of listening to that. But at the same time, she's not, because you can clearly see like Shadow Weaver, manipulates her
You know,
somewhat. Shadow Weaver's able
like
to get to
something.
her.
Something. Maybe if that argument took place about Glimmer going to see Shadow Weaver and not after the fact, maybe I could have got. Maybe I could say, okay, you know what? I see your point. But the fact of the matter is, this happened after Glimmer went to Shadow
Which is
Weaver.
fair.
So this started the bad taste in my mouth
Which is fair.
phase.
Like it definitely, I think it could have been set up somewhat better, right? But I can definitely, again, like it's my opinion that this is what they were going for, and I can see what they were going for, and I still like how they did some of it. And I do like that they had Glimmer go to Shadow Weaver because Shadow Weaver has that experience, and Shadow Weaver is the most experienced person they have around now, because
Yep.
Glimmer's mother is gone now. That's so she has to, so she needs that person to confide in because everyone else, Adora, Bo, all the rest of them, they have, very much kind of the same experience that she does at this point. There's no one there who's older and wiser, quote unquote, if you will. So
Yeah,
she turns to Shadow Weaver.
but still, I get why, but at the same time, a bit more that.
Yeah, I see.
And
I get you.
okay, so with that said, episode 5.
Um, is there anything else to say about Pulse? Yeah. No. Sorry.
No. So episode
But
5.
I did like seeing. I will say for Pulse, it was nice to actually see Glimmer go into action and just, her be a badass. That was fun. That was enjoyable, right? And
Okay,
just
yeah. You
absolutely
know,
wrecked Katra.
yeah, seeing the teleport, now that after becoming queen, it is kind of established that she doesn't really run out of energy to teleport and stuff.
No,
So that is kind of cool to see her using it without that limit.
agreed. But yeah, we can
So
move on.
episode 5, protocol. This I like. This I like the idea that again we see we get to see something about Mara. Adora questions Light Hope about Mara, and as soon as that happens, the problems start.
And
But
we
at the same
see,
time,
we see this other side of Light Hope as well. We see a Light Hope that, due to the acid storm, right, that the acid spore storm, right, she starts to break down, and we kind of see behind that mask somewhat, right, that she's kept up, which is
yeah,
good,
we
and
see,
Adora does
yeah,
as well.
like we see, for I guess you could say we see what she was back when Mara was Shira, and with the previous Shiras as well. What she was like before the thing with Mara happened. And the one thing I do want to point in this episode's favor is the ending. Like the ending left me with like whoa, when
Yeah,
because you could see that back when Mara was Shira, that Light Hope kind of had
she cared.
friendly relationship.
She
She
cared.
cared about her. They were friends for lack of a better term. And by the end, after Adora leaves, and Light Hope does see some of the memories of Mara, and she just like deletes it. That was
Yes.
like, whoa.
It
This.
definitely took you by surprise. Like it definitely like, wow, wait, what? Like,
Mhm.
like you always knew something wasn't quite right with like up until this point we've always been we've definitely been led to believe that something wasn't quite right with the story that we've been fed about Mara and Light Hope and
Yeah.
all of that. But this definitely, no doubt after this point, like Light Hope's definitely there's something going on there. Something's not right.
Yeah,
Like this is the moment that definitely sells the points.
I kind of understood that something wasn't right before,
Yeah,
but
agreed.
at this point, this was like not only it's not really something wasn't right. This is like something went completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like eh, something was just out of commission.
I think right.
So.
It speaks to the moment, and it speaks to how well they've built it up, though. That you knew something wasn't right with Light Hope, or you knew something that was wrong. You knew something was off about the story with Mara and Light Hope and all that, right? But it still speaks
Mhm.
to the moment that even with that knowledge going into this season and seeing this episode and seeing this moment, it's still like, wow, wait, whoa, that's it I think it speaks to the moment that it can still get you, right? That it can still kind of surprise you in what it does, in my opinion.
And yeah, but one thing I do want to say about this episode is you have the thing with Adora and Lighthope and Mara, and then you have the B plot,
With
which is Kai, Lonnie, and Rogelio in
Rogelio,
the
yes. I remembered their
Rogelio.
names this
Sorry,
time. Kyle, Lonnie,
yeah,
and Rogelio.
yeah.
That was good. I
So
actually enjoyed that. It's nice to see more
it,
of these three
it's
characters.
it's fine, but at the same time, this you I think maybe I'm on the minority side on this. I don't know, but I don't think this plot needed to be at the same time as something so heavy
I
as
mean,
the light up stuff.
it's definitely right. It's definitely not needed. If you took this away, you would lose nothing from this episode. But at the same time, it's a nice kind of side thing going on to see the two different sides of the Horde and the Rebellion and how they're kind of coping with this phenomenon, with this, you know, with this storm and everything and what's going on and how the Horde it kind of gives a different light of just the regular everyday life of the Horde too, right? Like these are the regular soldiers. This isn't just Katra or Scorpia or Hordak or the big
Yeah.
heads that we've continued to see, the more important players. These are the small fry, and how they deal with everything that's going on and how they have to cope. And and in the fact that many of them don't have powers and that they're kind of just having to deal and do their own thing. I like this. I liked it and enjoyed it. It's definitely something that again I would agree like it would have been nice to have more devoted to Light Hope and Adora, but at the same time I feel like I got what I needed from the A plot, right? And plot B was just a nice side, a nice little dessert, if you will.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but I think again, maybe if it was paired to another episode, I would be like, okay, I have no problem with this. But
That's fair.
the the Shira Light Hope stuff was so good that this was kind of stuck in the way.
Oh yeah, it definitely carries the episode. Like hands down, the Shira Light Hope, the Shira and Light Hope and Adora, all of that carries it.
I say Shira to like combine
Oh
Mara
sure,
and Adora into one thing.
sure, sure.
It helps. Mhm. So anything else? So
Overall, a good episode. I felt really furthers characters and stuff like that.
okay. With that said, episode 6, Princess Scorpia. This I like. This I really like.
Mm. Yet Scorpia definitely, I feel, I've heard a lot of people say, tell me that before I came into the season, I talked a little bit about my kind of watch through, and everyone said Scorpia is going to steal this season for you. I'm like, I'm a little on Scorpia. She's not my favorite character, but I definitely see why people like and enjoy her so much. And yeah, they were right. Like this episode alone, Scorpia definitely seals the season for me, I would say. I don't think she's my favorite part of the season, but she definitely
You know,
high
I
up
think,
there.
I think Scorpia is one of those. Whenever you are meeting up with a bunch of friends, then she's not your best friend, but you do have a good time with her. That's the kind of character she is. I think she's not the best character, but whenever something is going on with her, especially something like this, which is a big step for her, you are rooting for her, and I like that.
Mhm. But this one is, the big moment because this is when we finally see that, hey, Scorpia understands that Scorpio started to understand, like, the idea of friendship, what that means, and how the fact that Katra's not being a good friend, right? That she's not being a good
Yeah.
person to her.
Yeah, because this is another thing I like that throughout the season, Catra, Scorpia has been taking care of Emily, what Chanta's robot thing,
Mm-hmm.
and when she finds out that the notes that Catra wants her to get are inside Emily, she actually has to make the choice between being a friend to Catra or destroy Emily.
And, being a
And
good friend to Emily and to Entrapta.
Mhm. And it is for a character that for someone that's tried to impress Catra so much, and I would always be beside you. But to see her break, to see her say, you know what, I'm done with your bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
This not in these exact words. This was a very good episode, and also in my opinion, considering I had to cut some times with people who I thought were my friends, but they were really assholes. As someone
Mm-hmm.
who had to go to something like this was a very powerful.
Agreed. Like, yeah, it works so well, right? Because you see Scorpio go up and lie to Catra and say, "Hey, I did destroy Emily. Here's this," and Catra blows up and gets mad at her and yells at her and fusses at her for screwing up yet again, right? And Scorpio just she stands there, takes all of that, and just outright tells her, "You're a bad friend," and just walks away at that. Like, it's so simple, yet it works so well. I feel like it's
You know,
extremely strong.
because she doesn't need to say more.
Yeah.
You saw everything. You know why she says it. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is 4 seasons of building up to that moment. Like so,
Mm-hmm.
and when it happens, it's boom.
And it sticks with you, and it's just great, like really well done.
Mhm.
Like you cannot complain about it. It's just this is definitely the focus of this episode and a big moment in the season, and it works extremely well.
Mhm. And that ends with Scorpia, leaving the hold in order to find the Trempta, and
Mm-hmm.
that that leads us to
Well,
what goes on with the rebellion,
mm,
which is Double Trouble is causing a more fight with a Glimmer, I could, which again I would be more in for if Glimmer's side wasn't basically I'm useless to you now.
it's more so her side is I'm the queen. I want to still be useful, but I feel like I'm being shut out by all of you, and all of you are kind of doing things without my say so, even though I'm the queen, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if it's that she feels useless, but it's definitely like it's not solely that she feels useless. It's that she feels like everyone else is kind of ignoring her and ignoring her position and not letting her do the things that she wants to do because she's the queen, right?
okay. So several points about that. One, the entire reason she even got to meet Adora is because she disobeyed the queen herself.
Agreed.
That's one. Two. she kind of went against the queen in more than one occasion.
Agree.
So two, and most of all three. The reason she, I get the idea of, these guys are doing their own thing, but at the same time, she has a whole other category of being useful.
Oh, I agree.
She's
Again, I agree with you, right? I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just that, I see where she's coming from, and again, I see what they're trying to do with her, right? And that you she has this, she does feel useless in the way that she used to be, right? She feels like she can't do the things that she used to do, and she wants to do that. And she feels like she's being kind of cut off from that, and it does bother her. It shouldn't. And she's also kind of getting a taste of that on medicine, of being the person in charge and having to deal with the people who may not listen to her, who go off and do their own thing without her.
again, like I said a bit in the beginning of this episode, before we got into spoilers. I get what the writers were aiming at, but I don't think they achieved it.
I
At
will
least
agree
not in this thing.
with you though. Like this episode in particular definitely started to wear thin with the Adora Glimmer fighting stuff, and it didn't pick back up for me until um episode 7, like the next episode, really. Like that's when it really picked
Yeah.
back up for me, and kind of like the Adora Glimmer fighting thing. But this episode started to wear thin with it a little bit. Like the moments here felt like they were just kind of mundane, we're all fighting stuff. I've seen all that before. I've kind of been through it many times before with other stuff. It's nothing inherently new here. Episode 7, I
So,
think, did more with it, but not much more. But,
moving on to episode,
mm-hmm,
because we pretty much covered all of six, is
mm-hmm,
is Mer Mysteries. So, this is something I do like, that, even though we said that it is the way they handled Double Trouble being a spy,
mm-hmm.
it was handled well, and, she did, Double Trouble did manage to, trick them for reasons that we would consider legit. I do like that it doesn't take the characters a lot of time to also realize there's a spy.
Yeah, like they do figure it out very quickly, and they immediately start going through and
Yeah,
looking for suspects
because
and
it,
interviewing
it
everybody.
took it took 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I think any other show would like have done this during the season finale.
They would have stretched it out
So,
longer at the very least. I agree. And I've definitely seen shows that have stretched it out for much longer. And it just gets to a point where uh, you immediately start to say, God, these characters are stupid. I hate them.
but
But they don't do that
but
here.
the yeah, and the other thing I like is that, when the princesses eventually start arguing with each other about who is the spy, and you think, oh my God, can't you tell it's that person? But they actually do know, and the fighting ends up being part of the plan, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how they capture Double Trouble. So I like that. I like the
But
fact that,
oh, go ahead.
no, I like the fact that, they were onto who it is, and they actually play. They trap the trapper in a. So
Trapper's trap can trap the trapper, but can the trapper trap the trapper's
mm,
trap?
that's exactly why I said it, because I knew you were going to reference that.
However, that phrase goes, God, that was that was so weird, but it was dagger, so it's expected. I also like though from this episode that we have like, hey, they get the spy, they trap Double Trouble, they catch her, but at the same time, that's not completely a win because Mermista's kingdom has fallen. The
Yeah,
Horde takes over. I think it's Selenius. Is it? Is that her kingdom?
I'm not sure about the name, but it sounds right.
I'm going to assume it's right because this show is very on the nose with its name scheme. So Selenius is
Yeah.
probably the Sea Kingdom, obviously. If I'm wrong, yell at me in the comments below the video. But yeah, like I like the fact that they win, but they don't win, right? It's not a complete win for them.
Like, they won a battle, but the war is still
Yeah.
is still waging on.
Yeah. And like you said, like I love the fact that they used Adora and Glimmer's arguments and fighting as a way to help them trap uh, Double Trouble. Can't even remember the name. Jeez. I'm having an old person moment here. They use their arguments and their current fight and their current problems with one another as a way to trap her. And I love how Double Trouble points out, like, wow, you two acted really well, even better than I ever could have. Are you sure that's not a actual problem you have with one another? Are you sure it was just at all an act, or is there something actually there? I love how Double Trouble catches on to that and points it out that, hey, maybe things aren't as good as you two seem to make out right now, right? I love that, like, because they're still not good with one another, even though it looks like they might have come to blows here and they might have worked things out somewhat by working together. They're still not working together, I guess you would say. Adore and Glimmer still have issues with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, just a good episode and a good way I felt to use the problems that Adora and Glimmer have with one another, and just a good use of Double Trouble as a spy. It didn't overstay its welcome, and it ended right when it needed to. And even though they caught the spy, it never felt like a complete win. Like, okay, we're back up now. They're still on the back foot even after catching the spy. It was done well, in my opinion.
Yep, I agree with that. So, this leads us to episode 8, Boys Night Out. This is filler. This is filler to the highest degree.
It's definitely kind of a character-focused episode, but it doesn't really do a lot with the characters it focuses on. I like it because my man Seahawk, I love him to death. He's wonderful. But I do get if this is an episode that others didn't like. Because not many people love Seahawk.
And the thing about this is, I think even if I like a Seahawk, the thing is, it doesn't really do anything in the grand scheme of things.
No, it doesn't.
It just comes and basically hijacks the plot. And the thing about that is that I kind of get that, this is episode 8. After this, there are 5 episodes left. So maybe they needed like one episode to, chill or something. But this really felt like, okay, we need to make 13 episodes and we're kind of stuck. So I don't know. This is what it felt like to me.
Again, like I said, I liked it. Seeing Seahawk and Swiftwing interact was fun. Like, these two kind of more comedic characters definitely have a lot of chemistry here, and I think it worked really well. And then playing Bo as the straight man to all of their nonsense, and him just kind of slowly getting more and more wrapped up in the nonsense himself as well, worked pretty well. I felt, right? Like, it was definitely well thought out. Even if it is, quote unquote filler, or even if it is something like you don't like, it's still something I thought was very well thought out in how it was done, right? So I enjoyed it. But I mean, after this, like, it's definitely kind of that lull moment, because after this point, it's just, episode 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is just, big moment after big moment after big moment after big moment that really hits and hits hard, I feel, right? So I felt like this was kind of a nice lull before all of that just hits you.
Yeah, again, I get the point of to achieve, but I they achieved that all that way.
I can see where you're coming from. It's definitely, again, it's going to, I think, really depend on, do you like these 3 characters in particular, because that's going to be your focus, especially Seahawk. Do you like this character? If this is a character you enjoy and can get behind, I think you'll enjoy this episode. But if not, you'll probably be a bit mad with this one, because it doesn't really do a whole lot. Although Mermista brooding was definitely fun. Poor girl.
Yeah, Mermista is a cool character.
Like,
so
she's definitely,
yeah, it is.
She's not my favorite character, but she's definitely one of my favorites out of the princesses, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? So can we move on to the next episode?
No, episode 9. Let's do it.
I need a hero. Boo. Anyway,
I
listened to
love
that
this
song
episode.
yesterday. Mm-hmm. Again, this is like a kind of, the everything that has something to do with Mara and Lenin, what happened to her, is good in my opinion, and I really like this.
I think this is definitely an episode of, like, the idea is following Madame Raz around and kind of dealing with someone, in a way, dealing with someone who has Alzheimer's or dementia, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
one issue I think I would love to talk with people who have more experience with those diseases and those with those diseases, right? Like dealing with that, because I would love to hear, because to me, right, it comes off as the episode is like, Madame Raz does, at least it comes off in a way that Madame Raz is traveling back and forth between present and past. Like that's
Hmm.
kind of her deal. Like that's why, like, she is going between these two timelines. Either if it's all in her head or not, I can't completely tell. And my one problem with that is does that take away from the dementia and from the dementia angle, right? Like, does that potentially take away from that in a way? Do you
You
get me?
know, yeah, I get what you mean, and also, having a friend that had a grandma that had, Alzheimer.
Mm-hmm.
I think what they were trying again. Let's before I say anything, let's just say what I say right now is kind of interpretation based
Mm-hmm.
on talking to someone who had a relative like this.
Yeah.
What I'm not saying this was the show's in full intent. I'm not saying this is what the episode wants you to think. I'm saying this is how I see it if I look at it from that angle.
This is fair.
With that said, what that friend told me is that sometimes her grandmother just felt like like that she just felt she was in that situation,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in whatever memory she had again, she like went back in time to
Mm-hmm.
that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to that, I think it's not necessarily time travel, but just how Raz sees this.
My issue with that though is that Raz apparently knew Adora before Adora was a thing, though, is my issue, right? Like in the past, she's referring to Mara as Adora, and even Mara looks to and talks to Adora like like Madame Raz believes you are a thing. Maybe you are a thing. I don't know. So I'm going to take this shot, right? So Madame Raz knew Adora before Adora was a thing, quote unquote, right?
Okay,
And that's where my
okay.
issue comes from. Like, does that kind of ruin the dementia slash Alzheimer's angle, right? Like, does that hurt that in a way?
Well, but that's the other thing I want to say, that for all intents and purposes, because they don't necessarily say it is amnesia or something.
Which is
Amnesia,
fair.
I mean, because they don't say it's Alzheimer or dementia or what because they don't say it, then they probably think they could take some liberties with it, especially because
Mm-hmm.
it's a fantasy world.
That's fair.
But so I'm not sure about this though. Again, everything we say doesn't necessarily mean this was the writer's intent. This is just we're working with what we got.
That's fair. Again, that's fair, right? Like, it's definitely, I would love to hear from someone who has way more experience with it than I do, because my experience is very much, at best, secondhand, right? Like, you talked about earlier, like you with your experience with your friend and their grandmother. That's kind of about the amount of experience I have. It's very secondhand. So I would love to talk with someone who has more of that experience and how they felt about this, and whether they thought it was, and whether they thought it took away or not. But even yet, watching this episode, like coming off of this episode, my first and only feeling was just, damn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel this is an extremely powerful episode. Probably, I think, even now looking back, I think this was the episode that sold this season to me. Like, this was probably my favorite episode of this season.
Because finding out that Light Hope has a very has kind of a disdain for Mara now is one thing, but now we find out that Light Hope, the one who trained Adora to be Shira, the one that we kind of saw as a hope, is like the one. It was is apparently another thing that we need to be careful of.
Mm-hmm.
That Adora shouldn't trust her because Light Hope doesn't really, and for the first ones for that matter, don't really aren't doing the world any good when push comes to shove.
It definitely paints them in a darker light, right? It makes these supposedly what we thought were supposed to be the good guys out to be maybe they're not so good. Like, and you definitely have to wonder, like, why did they want that weapon? What were they trying to
Which,
destroy?
which again, I like the fact that there's no black and white in this show.
Mm-hmm.
Like anyone can be good, anyone can be bad, anyone
Mm-hmm.
can be anything. This is,
Agreed.
and I like that. I like
But
that a lot.
I
That's
still like
great.
I still like though that you have Adora who's still trying to kind of cope with that idea, right? That what she thinks is good and what she thinks is evil isn't always clear cut, right? But in this moment, you see her kind of revert back to that. Okay, light hope is bad, right? And there's no in between there. She never considers like why did they want to do this. She just considers this is bad. Which fair play, destroying the planet and multiple other planets is bad. Don't get me wrong. But I love that you see Adora confronted with this time and time again. Like the people she trusts aren't necessarily the ones she should be trusting completely. Like she completely trusts these people, and they break that trust. They show that hey, maybe they're not as on the up and up as she thought they were. It's just good.
Indeed.
But yeah, like
Yep.
and
It's good.
you add that to just going through and just seeing Madame Raz have to play through all these things and these past memories and these memories of the future and just kind of flitting back and forth between these two memories and everything that's going on with her and what she's dealing with. It just makes for an extremely powerful episode, in my opinion, that really just hits home and hits home
I
hard.
agree. I agree.
One
I really agree.
one thought I came away, and I'm going to ask you what you think. Madame Raz is Angela a question mark? Is that a thing? I'm curious to hear from other fans. Is that a fan theory that's been passed around?
Um, I'm not really around much of the Shira fandom, and it's not necessarily something. It's just I didn't really have the time to look
I've
at
only
theories,
neither have I, right?
so
Like I've only recently started poking my head into that fandom and seeing in, right? Most of what I've seen so far is a lot of Catra and Adora, a lot of shipping in general,
so
really. That was my first. That's been my first and still yet my biggest notice from the Shira fandom is a lot of shipping.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
not been able to
But
stick my head in enough to see the theories, but I'd be curious to hear from other fans if you watch this and
you
listen.
know, I'm sorry to be that guy, but I didn't. You say that, and like with any theory, there are some stuff that makes sense about
Oh
it, and
sure,
stuff that don't. So I
absolutely.
don't really. So I don't really want to say that oh, this has to be. I'm just it's a theory. It could work, maybe.
I find the
This
idea interesting to say the least. That's why I bring it up.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, no doubt, but it's kind of like it's possible, it's a maybe, but if it's not that, I won't lose sleep over it because
Fair, fair.
one thing I do notice is that sometimes whenever people theorize about something long enough and then it's proven to be not the
Wrong.
case,
Yes. Yep.
so
People get
you know
upset.
I yeah, so I can have theories, I could listen to theories, but I don't really want to say anything because if it ends up being not true,
I
then
mean, it's nice to enjoy those things and have them and have fun with them. I mean, that's why we write fan fiction, right? We that allows us
exactly.
to explore that stuff. But it's also it's also a good idea to remember: don't judge ever. Don't judge. Don't ever judge a show for what it's not. Judge it for what it is and what you've gotten from it, not for what you wanted it to be.
Mhm.
Always remember that, ladies and gentlemen. It'll
Yeah.
make it. It'll improve your enjoyment of everything by quite a lot if you remember that.
Last Jedi? Okay, never mind. Moving on. Just to be clear, I'm not that big of a Star Wars fan. Nothing against it. I just didn't really see the movies, even though I know everything that happened in them. And
Fair.
and as well, recon this Rise of Skywalker just came out, so people are going all over the. all about it again. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just fresh. So
I get you.
with that, mhm.
Star
So with
Wars is
that
bad.
said,
That's what you mean. I know.
if you say so, moving on. Episode,
Darn. Thought I would get you with that one.
episode,
Anyways, moving on.
episode 10, fractures.
Mm.
So this is the point where again we the entire so the thing that we found out in the previous episode, which is the first one to activate the heart and the heart of Etheria,
Mm-hmm.
and what this means. Obviously, causes some division in the rebellion,
Mm-hmm.
and Adora obviously doesn't want to use it because planet go bye bye,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I don't know. I just said to myself, I'm saying something went bye bye when we call today. I don't know what, but I'm going to say it. Well,
Fair.
found the thing,
Fair.
and but then Glimmer to actually have the magic, the power in order to
You're
defeat the
breaking up a
hold.
bit on my end.
Oh, is it okay now?
I mean, it goes in and out. Sometimes you're fine, sometimes you're not. But you're definitely
Mhm.
breaking up a bit more now, just to let you
Okay.
know.
If I'm talking at this point, am I breaking up?
No, not yet.
Okay, so we'll just keep going and see what's up.
Okay.
But anyway, what I want to say is that so Glimmer wants to use the first one's power to destroy the hold, and the thing is, I get that choice. I get it, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it feels like a solution. It doesn't feel like a temporary solution, and again, as queen, I think she should really think of the consequences of this solution
Yeah,
because it's a one-time thing, and in the long run, it could bite them in the ass.
that's fair.
So again, Glimmer, think. You were able to think before you were. Why aren't you doing that now?
I think it does go with Glimmer because Glimmer does try and find those easier solutions, those quick solutions of, you of words, English, me no do good. She does try to find those quick solutions though. She is trying to look for those ways to end things quicker, to try and in her mind save as many lives as possible by using this weapon. If we can
Yeah, but at
find a
the
way to
sa-
harness
but
it,
at
it's
the,
a quick way to power. It's a quick
yeah,
way
but
to
then
end
again,
things.
and I don't necessarily blame this on herself because she has advisors, she has other people, but when Adora, the current Shira, tells you that the previous Shira isn't supportive, there's probably something you need to consider before you say we'll do this.
I think she did consider, right? Like she quickly considered that it's still worth it in her mind. It's still worth it because it gives us a quick way to beat the horde because they were so much on the back foot. Like that was Glimmer's biggest thing, right? We've lost so much. We've lost practically everything at this point except for Bright Moon. So many of the other princesses have lost their homes and their kingdoms now. We need something. We're not getting anything any other way. We're not getting anywhere in any other way. This is what we have. Let's do it regardless of the consequences. Because Glimmer is kind of, she fusses at other people for charging in head first, but that's who she is as well.
And this kind of makes me hate this thing more because you're rushing with a temporary solution that could damage you in the long run, and then you blame anyone for disobeying you.
Again, though, I feel it makes sense for her character. I do. I think it works for who she
Okay.
is.
Again, I said it once, so you know what? I'll stop bringing this up afterwards.
I get you,
But
though.
again, yeah, but like I said, it feels like what the writers wanted to imply, but it doesn't work for me.
I get that. Again, I can see where you're coming from. I disagree with you personally, but I do see where you're coming from when you say it. Like, it definitely. As I said before, I think it has its moments where it shines through way better. And this is one of those moments that, while I can see where it's coming from, if someone says I'm not as fond of it, I can understand, okay, this is definitely one of those moments where it maybe doesn't shine through quite as well. That maybe they could have done something to change up or help in this regard in some way. What that could be, right offhand, I don't know.
But on the other hand of the episode, Scorpia arrives at Bright Moon, and and asks and tells them about Chapta, that she's on Beast Island,
Mm-hmm.
and and asks the rebellion's help to rescue her. Glimmer says no, but Adora go behind her back and go to rescue and Chapta.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one thing, but the thing I really like about this episode is that when Scorpia does arrive at Bright Moon, she actually hits it up with the other princesses,
Yeah, they
and
bond. It's
it,
cute.
yeah,
It's
and
adorable.
it's not only is it adorable, but it's also you know she finally feels like she belongs. She feels like people accept her, and that's great. I love it.
I love.
After taking Catra's shit for so long,
Yeah,
it's nice to see her being accepted as who
it's nice
she
to see
is.
her have something nice, and I love the fact that her statement is very much following that kind of simple stuff of from Scorpia is I've never felt like I belonged anywhere, and you guys are making me feel the opposite of that, which I guess is belonging. Which, yeah, it's silly, but it works from her character. It's just funny. It's funny, it's silly, but it really does work, and it really helps sell the moment, right? I love that. And I love that it's Frosta who, comes in and says, hey, I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere either. But after
Yeah.
seeing everyone here,
Yeah, they
no one
actually have
does.
that moment. Yeah, they actually have that moment, and that's
No
very
one
cool.
kind of belongs. Everyone's weird and different and zany and unique and crazy. And you know what? We make it
We are
work.
we
That's
are a
fun.
bunch of misfits.
Yeah. We're a ragtag group of misfits, but we make it work. It
But
was
other than
nice.
that, I don't really have too much to say about
I
episode 10.
loved seeing Catra just slowly losing it after watching everyone on the screens and oh no, that wasn't this episode, was it? Or was it this episode?
I don't think it's this one. I think it's later.
I feel like it. No, I think it is this episode where we see Catra watching the different movie screens and you know looking through them in hopes of trying to find Scorpia and kind of seeing things that remind her of Scorpia and losing it. And slowly, she goes after Lonnie, Kyle, and Rogelio and really is pushing them like well past their point too. And you just kind of see that breakdown happen quicker and quicker, and not having Double Trouble respond as well because Double Trouble's been caught. You just again, it's
I'm
just
not
great.
sure. I'm not sure which episode it's on,
I
but
think that
I
is
agree
this
with
one.
you.
I think that is
Mm.
this episode. I could be wrong, but I think that is this episode.
If it's this one, then yeah, I really like that. I really like it too. That she's becoming paranoid,
Mm-hmm.
even more than she is already.
Fair. But
Okay,
again, it's
so
just seeing
episode.
the breakdown of that character. It's enjoyable. Not in a good way, mind, to be clear, but it's enjoyable to see that happen and seeing her like slowly realize, all of these things about herself.
So, episode 11, Beast Island.
Mm-hmm.
This comes to a point where I'm half and half about it. With, so like we said from the previous episode, Dora, kind of go behind us back to rescue and Trapta, who is on Beast Island.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they get there, they discover that Glimmer's father is.
Yes, Micah's alive. That was definitely a bit of a shock. King Micah's been alive and he's been living on Beast Island this entire time. Definitely like, that was an unexpected twist.
Unexpected, but at the same time, is it good?
It's not terrible, right? But it does feel like, what's the point? like maybe again, I don't want to be too quickly. I don't want to too quickly judge it because maybe they have something planned for
Yeah,
season five.
yeah,
But
when I can, I knew that there was going to be before I watched this, so I kind of assumed that they have a long, they have an end game for this,
mhm.
and they probably play some sort of role. But uh, trying this all of a sudden here, kind of, I don't know. I think I'm just sick of this entire character who we thought the parent is dead. Suddenly the parent is alive.
Mhm.
I don't know, and because for comparison, we are Hot and Dragon fans, but with how it was done there, I could get it that the parent is alive with the explanations they gave. I could say, you know what, fine, but at the same time, I'm looking at this and it's like I'm not too sure.
I
Like
mean,
there are some
right
question marks.
for How to Train Your Dragon, right? Like we saw in the second movie, we saw Valka's abduction, right? Like, and everyone just and at that point, everyone just assumed, oh, she was killed by the dragons because that's what happens,
Yeah.
right? Like the dragons took her to be fed to the Red Death or whatever else they did with her. That's it. She's gone. She's dead. But you're given that idea of like, oh, she might have been abducted though, not killed. So yeah, there's definitely we're going to see her again. She's not dead, right? And
But no, no, no.
this,
But the thing is that we see her abduction after we find out she's alive.
mm-hmm.
So
But
at first you're like, oh, okay, but then and it also kind of works with the mythology that the first movie, built. The
mm,
dragons are not terrible.
yeah, I agree.
Here, here it's like this is considered to be a place where you banish people when you want them dead.
Yeah,
So like,
I,
so
I
like
think.
all of a sudden this guy's been alive for years, really?
Well, again, I think it's supposed to, one, it kind of shows like this is just how strong he is, just how strong of a will he has, right? That he
Yeah,
can
that's also
survive for
true.
that long. But also, I do get where you're coming from, though. Like, it definitely felt like, huh, okay. It's not terrible, it's not bad, but it definitely feels way out of nowhere, and that's not necessarily a good thing because we never really got to really know King Micah. We knew young Micah as he was training to be a sorceress from, Shadow Weaver, whose old name I forget, Light something, or was that
I
what
don't
Shadow
remember.
Weaver? Anyways, point is he was trained by Shadow Weaver. We saw King Mike. We saw Micah as a young kid being trained by Shadow Weaver, right? But we
Mhm.
never saw Light Spinner. That's what it is. We never saw. I think that's what it is. Fuss at me in the comments below again, fandom, please. Anyways, we never saw like old King Micah, and we never saw what he was like past that one small scene of Angela and him together during like when the world's kind of collapsing in a way, right? Like that's the only scene of King Micah that we saw. Nothing else past that. So we never really got to know him and understand like, is there a potential chance this guy could have survived? Is he, this supposed badass that everyone purports him to be, or is he something less than that? Like we just don't know. And then we kind of learn like, oh, he survived here. So he is definitely that supposed badass that everyone purported him to be, but we never really got the feeling of saying maybe he is alive. There was never any discussion there for us to have as viewers and fans, right?
Yeah,
And I think
but
that's why
again,
it can come off as a bit of, I don't want to say an ass pull, but it can definitely come off as a bit kind of meh. Like I'm not as connected with this character being alive as you think I
you
can be or
say
am.
you say that, but then again, we talked earlier about we don't really know what Shira theories have been running. Well, maybe it was something that people have thought
This is true.
about. So I don't know.
It's definitely possible, but to me, it definitely felt like I'm not as connected with this character or any thoughts behind him, and I've never been shown anything major from him. So seeing that he's alive doesn't mean as much to me personally. Like it's nice. I get where you might go with it now from a character perspective for Glimmer and him as well, but it just doesn't connect me in the same way. Not yet. Maybe season 5 can absolutely turn that around and I'll come back and say love King Micah. But, long live the king. But as of season 4 and the little bit I get here, not as connected.
There's also a part in this episode that I get. Adora tries to transform into Shira, but it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, it turns like that she like was afraid or wasn't confident in herself. It's like what is like
So for
this?
so for that one, I think it's supposed to say like the island one kind of messes with your head, and two, it because it messes with your head so much. I think it's trying to say this idea of what I suspect might be going more into in season 5, that you need the sword to change, but you don't, right? I have a feeling, right, we're going to get into season 5 with spoilers what happens in this season, and go into season 5 thinking like, oh, She-Ra's completely gone. She's not gone. Like She-Ra and Adora are more and more one and the same, right? That there's not a separation of the
That's
two.
like Adora can be Shira. So
Do what now?
Adora can be Shira without the soul.
Yes. And I think that's kind of what this episode is setting up just a little bit, that she needs to have confidence in herself and not be afraid of or fear losing people or making mistakes as She-Ra, as she was in this episode,
Again,
right?
again, kind of like what I'm saying about Glimmer's character.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that's why that's intent, but I don't think it's done particularly well
That's fair.
in this regard.
I think that's a fair assumption. I think that's a fair, critique to make.
And again, like you said about Mike, BC, if season 5 does play around with that idea, maybe it could change my mind. I don't know. But as it stands right now,
I mean,
uh,
right, you have to kind of play between that. Like, do you judge it now, or do you wait and see everything all in one and then say, I think, right, because we have to wait on season 5, I think it's fair to judge it for what it is right now, right? And it's
yeah,
fair to say, like, this
and
doesn't
it's
work as well as it maybe could. And if I need something in
and
the future to give me that kind of, um, that confirmation, or that kind of build up and expanded upon idea, maybe that's still not as good though, because I shouldn't have to have that in order to understand and enjoy this moment, right?
yeah, so maybe if I remember this five comes out,
Fair
I'll
enough.
get back to you. I'll get back to you on that.
We will
We'll see.
see.
But anyway, the other thing that the Beast Island adventures end when Atrapta shows up and rescues Adora, Bo, and Michael,
Mm-hmm.
and which leads us to another part of the episode, which is Glimmer going to see Light Hope, and Light Hope does explain to her how to activate the thing, but the only thing that's missing and that's left to do is reconnect the Black Garnet, which we've seen since season 1, with the intended princess, which is
Scorpia.
Scorpia.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people were happy about this, and I am too.
Yeah. It makes sense that Scorpio was a princess. She did say she was, right, multiple times. So, but yeah, it's nice to see her reconnect with that and everything, and it was nice to see Glimmer think that she can trust Light Hope, right, after everything she's been told, and kind of seeing that interaction, right. I also, something I want to mention, just going back slightly about the Beast Island thing. I was going to complain, right, about how everything they tell Entrapta, right, about Beast Island, and about how they were sorry and that they left behind and how they felt about everything, and they immediately say, oh, we have a first one ship, and Entrapta's like, all right, let's go, I'm leaving. It's like, but they do kind of save that moment with Entrapta, like, it kind of works for her character, right, and being that character who's not good at friendships and people, right.
Yeah,
And they do kind of
exactly.
save it with her saying, yeah, I did hear what you said, Bo. I do get it, and I do thank you for that. Like, that was a nice little moment, right? Like, I appreciated the moment that they gave us there. Like, I was going to complain, but then you saved it. And I'm like, all right, fine, you got me. And Trapped is still adorable. I'll give it to you.
Okay, so moving on,
Also,
we have
one
yeah.
thing,
Okay,
sorry, King Micah so
go ahead.
quickly gave up to death, right? Like, He finds out Angela's died, but Glimmer's still alive. Oh well, I don't care. I die now. Like, damn, dude, you don't even care about your daughter that much? Come on. Like, jeez.
He, he probably saw. My cynical side of me wants to say that he probably saw some of the episode season, and it's like, okay, she's not wanted anymore. Bye.
Oof. Oof.
Okay, that's
Fair, but oof.
okay. That's HC's dark humor episode. So moving on. So episodes 12 and 13 are two parters. Destiny part 1 and part 2. So we're going to we're basically going to treat it as one episode. So boy, do shit go down in this finale.
Yeah. You know, this was definitely probably the biggest. I would say this is the biggest She-Ra finale we've had, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
this is
I'll agree.
a ton of setup and a ton of things going into season 5 that I'll be curious if we only get, if there's, because I've definitely, from what my understanding is, season 5 is going to possibly be the last season unless they cut it up and do a season 5 then a season
6. Season 5 is going to be the final one unless they cut it.
I'm going to be interested how they cover everything we have going into season 5, right? Because there's a lot of character stuff we need to get through. Catra, Adora.
Well, you know, let's run down the list. Let's run down the list. 1, Scopia is now a princess. 2, Catra awesome. Catra and Glimmer are trapped on the Horde Prime's ship. Horde Prime wants. Yeah, we see Horde Prime who wants Hordak reprogrammed because he thinks that what Hordak has done for him is like trying to take the planet for himself.
Well, Hordak has a sense of self now, and he's not supposed to. He's supposed to be just a mindless clone, a drone, another one of him that he created, right?
Also, Hordak finds out Catra lied to him in chapter 2. She-Ra's sword is destroyed, and yeah, that's like the big
Light Hope
shoot.
is also destroyed, but you kind of see this moment of Light Hope thanks Adora for finally doing the thing that Mara failed to do and giving her back her kind of memories and freedom, I guess you would say. At the very end.
Yeah, so we have that. We have that big fight between Catra and Double Trouble and Hordak.
Well, mostly Hordak, but then we see Double Trouble come in at the end and just really tear into Catra. There's no fight there. It's just.
It's not a fight, but it's like ooh.
It's not a physical fight. It's an emotional fight. It's just, hey, I know everything about you. Let me just tear you down. You've been hurt, you've been wounded, so here I come in to just sweep your legs out from under you and just really cut you down.
It's not the exact same thing, but have you played Life is Strange?
No. I have experience with it, though. I know what it is.
But basically, without giving too much away to people who want to play it or something, and I'm talking about the just got its last episode.
Repeat that, you broke up a little bit. You're talking about what part?
Life is Strange, You're
talking about Life is Strange, about one episode, or?
I'm talking about the first game, not the second one. Not the second one, which just got its final episode.
Okay.
So looking at that, there's a point at some point in the finale of that game. There's a point where like the main character kind of has a session with himself. And that herself is really tearing into her. Like she's like basically every bad thing the character has done, no thing she's done, that other self tells her. That's what it reminded me of. Like the thing that's that knows you best, that knows you so well, and to some extent has been you. That just you. Terrible. That's an ouch.
I think that's fair. A fair comparison. That's the word I'm looking for. Bleh. Me and words today, not doing too well. But yeah, like that was just That was heavy, and I feel. And something that kind of bugged me after watching that, I saw a lot of people talking about how they felt Double Trouble cares about Catra in their own way. How do you feel about that? Because I don't think Double Trouble really does care about Catra per se. But what do
You
you
know,
think?
yeah, this is a part that if Double Trouble was something that was introduced in an earlier season, then maybe I could have gotten it more. But I think the thing is that I think Double Trouble just enjoys this.
Yeah.
Like
I think one, she's in it for the
there's
money, and
some
she
kind
just kind of
like
enjoys messing with people. I don't think she really did it to help Catra per se, or that she cared for Catra.
I think from the start it was obvious that she and it also kind of once the rebellion
You're you're breaking up
onto
again.
damn it. Is it okay now?
Maybe we'll see.
We'll see. But I think that after Double Trouble saw the
Nope,
rebellion was nope.
nope.
Okay, so carry the conversation. I'll
Carry the conversation. So yeah, going back to it, like for me personally, like I said, I think Double Trouble doesn't necessarily care about Catra. I think she was, I just don't see the connection that people make there. Maybe that's just a me thing. Maybe someone in the comments below can convince me otherwise. We'll see. But for me, it's definitely. I'm not as convinced that Double Trouble cares for or about Catra. Not in the sense that.
she's
Go ahead.
she's in it for the money, and I think that after she saw how quickly the rebellion was onto the shtick, Double Trouble just started, appreciating the rebellion more. Or or there are just no sides.
I mean, she did
It's
say, right, for her that it's, join the strongest side wins. So I'll be interested to see if she tries to join Hordak, Horde Prime maybe, right, and tries to do something there potentially. And will
yeah,
she still
that's
side with the
also
rebellion, or will she still go on her, or will she step away from that in order to protect herself? Because survival of the fittest and strongest wins, right? That'll be
that's
interesting.
there's again another character I want to see what goes on, what's going to go on with
Still
her
yet,
in
poor Catra.
yeah. No, like even though Double Trouble has some points, Catra has like had it bad in
Yeah.
this finale.
Oh yeah. She has to deal with Double Trouble telling Hordak about her line to Entrapta, about her line about Entrapta, and that fighting Hordak and then having Glimmer come in, and just at that point you just kind of see like, well, end it. I don't care anymore. Like, damn girl, please someone hug her, please. She needs
Um,
it.
if I may quote a good friend of mine, Catra could step on me and I'll be okay.
You've quoted that before, by the way.
Yeah, I know, I quoted it before, but this was the context in which it was written about. So
I,
worth it's worth a second mention.
I wouldn't go that far, but she definitely needs a hug. Let me hug you, please.
Mhm.
You could use it. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, as
going to
long as she doesn't scratch you to death after the hug, I think everything is fine.
but continuing to go down that list, we see, hey, we're back in the main universe. We can see stars again, right? Like that was kind of a bit of a powerful moment too. Like seeing Bo and Trapta just kind of like having that moment of wow. That was nice. That was good. Like it was kind
Yeah.
of a small side thing, but it worked. It felt good, I guess you would say.
Mhm. Yeah, but that's another thing that again I can the we talked about Katra, and where Katra ends up in this season is trapped with Glimmer
hmm
aboard Old Prime's
Which
ship.
I think is a good
So
thing, right? Having those two characters specifically together.
yeah, I agree.
I
I
think
like
that's
that team up. I want to see what they'll do with that team up now.
Yes, I think that's going to be a great dynamic, especially where these two characters are at the end of this season, kind of seeing everything Glimmer's gone through, and having that ending note of Glimmer realizing that Light Hope lied to her, that she did use her, that Adora had been right, that Glimmer was wrong. It's going to be
There's
interesting
also,
seeing that.
you say that, but then I also think that, as much as I am kind of on and off about that plot point, um, both Catra and Glimmer feel like Adora kind of, betrayed their trust. In a
Mm-hmm.
sense, Catra thinks that because Adora went to, join the rebellion and is now Shira, and Glimmer feels that because Adora keeps going behind her back on missions that she doesn't approve of. So I wonder if this is going to be a thing that would connect them.
Oh yeah, I
If
think
this
it
will
is.
be a.
I think it's going to be a thing that connects them, as well as a thing where you see them, one or both of them, defend Adora to the other, right, and talk about Adora in a much more positive light, and what they did for them, right,
Yeah.
and what Adora did for them, right, and how Adora is maybe not definitely not the best of friends. That she's not perfect, but she does have her strong suits. That she is still a good friend in spite of those flaws, right?
Mhm.
I think it'll be interesting to see the dynamic between these two, as well as their connection as well as their connection with Adora, and how they connect with each other because of Adora. It's going to be interesting,
Mhm. Yeah.
seeing where they stand and where they go from there.
Mhm.
Still need my Adora
So.
Catra moment of making up and them hugging at very least show. If you don't give me these two, if you don't give me a Catra gets hugged moment in season 5, I'm done with you. I'm F. Failed show. End of. Catra needs a hug and she
Okay.
deserves to get it in season 5.
Well, you heard it. You heard it here, folks. this is
I will
this
fail
is
your
a.
show otherwise. Big F.
Mhm.
You will be given an F on your report card, writers, if Catra doesn't get a hug.
Well, I have nothing to say. I agree. But, what the hell do I say? But
Yeah, something.
but
Oh, go
again,
ahead.
so the one thing I do want to say that one part that I like is that the very first thing we see there is we see Adora heartbroken. The sword is gone, which kind of implies Shira is gone,
Mm-hmm.
and she looks at the old Prime's ship. Bo comes up to her. She tells him everything, and then the final words that she say, which also seal the season, is we're going to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to win. And I like the fact that we will probably do this plot that Adora can stand on her own and doesn't necessarily need Shira like other shows and movies like
Mm-hmm.
this have done this. But I like the fact that we don't necessarily need an episode for her to gain her trust. Like we are going into next season knowing that she's confident enough in herself, even if she doesn't have the power of Shira anymore, that she's going to win this battle.
Mm-hmm. Or she's going to try and win anyways. Yeah, I agree. I think that
Mm-hmm.
was really strong, and I think it'll be interesting, right? How they set up for how they go into season 5. Like, are we going to do the thing of like? I'm very interested to see. Are we going to do the thing of Adora and Shira are one and the same, and Shira isn't gone because Adora's still there. As long as Adora's still there, Shira is still there, right? Like, cause she is
I
Shira.
just, I just hope that, on the one hand, you say that, and and like I said, I kind of like the idea that Adora doesn't necessarily need the Shira transformation in order to be Shira,
I
but
like
at the
that
same
too, and I
time,
hope. But go ahead. I
uh,
think I know where
but
you're going.
yeah, but at the same time, I hope it's not going to be. It was in you all along bullshit,
Yeah, yeah.
because the thing is, in a fantasy show like this, you need rules. You
Mm-hmm.
need you need some sort of rules to ground everything so that the characters can be overpowered or something. And if you go with the entire Adora can just transform into Shira now without the sword, then it makes this entire finale pointless.
Well, it's not just that. There's also the problem of they have to figure out, and this is why I'm very interested to see what they do with this. There's also the problem of they've kind of throughout given out throughout the past couple of seasons, given this idea of Shira and Adora aren't necessarily the one and the same. That they are somewhat different. That they do stand apart from one another and who they are. Right, like they're again like they're not one and the same. And I hope that they still, and I'll be interested to see, right, in how they go forward with having that been set up, and how they might go forward with Adora still being Shira, still being capable on her own without Shira. Like, are they going
Wait,
to,
and
how are they going to
another
play with that?
thing,
I do
and
worry that
another
they
thing.
might overstep on Adora and focus more on Shira, right? And forget that Adora's still Adora. She's
You
still
know,
capable.
there's something about considering how much Mara we had this season.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that they need to do this. I'm not saying this is like a requirement for a good season, but I kind of want to see, kind of like what Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did. That that at the same time, like Spider-Man, Shira is a mentor
Mm-hmm.
in a sense. But
Be interesting.
whoever wears the mantle is a different person than the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to see because they do kind of hint at the idea that Mara was probably a different Shira than what Adora is. So I do
Mm-hmm.
want to see them maybe play along with this idea of you know that not having the sword, Adora is able to step up as Shira in her own way, like Miles Morales steps up as a different Spider-Man than Peter Parker.
But getting into it, right? Like, it's all of these thoughts, right? And everything we have going on for characters and just setup wise for season five, that does worry me that if season five is the last season, are they going to be able to cover all that and make it feel enjoyable, right? Because like, it
I,
feels to me season five has a lot going into it, right? So I do
well,
have this
this is the
fear that
thing.
maybe they're not going to be able to achieve all this. Maybe they can, and maybe they will. And I have, and after having seen the previous four seasons, I have confidence that they can. But it is a worry when you realize and start to think about just how much they have going on, because it's a lot.
Guess we'll have to find out.
This is true. I'm excited
So
for it though. Like,
yeah,
this was a great season finale.
mhm.
I
I
don't think I
agree.
could have asked for better.
Mhm. And I think the best question to put here is how are they gonna top that?
Mm.
And something, considering how much of a small gap there was between seasons as we saw, I hope we are not going to wait too long to find out how it all ends.
Agreed.
Because if the calculations are correct, we might get the next season in February.
Mm-hmm. Which would be great, but we will see.
Mhm. Well, guess we will see. So this, I think, this is all for this episode of the Outcast.
Mm-hmm. This has been. I've enjoyed this talking about She-Ra. It's been a lot of fun,
Yeah, I enjoy this little marathon, and I'm looking forward to seeing what our stance would be when season 5 comes out.
and I think,
So,
yeah, and like I said at the as our as we covered season one, I said that having watched this year, all four seasons, this has definitely been kind of my sleeper hit, if you will, for this year. Like, I didn't think I would enjoy this the way I did, and it really it proved me wrong. It hands down proved me wrong.
mhm,
So I highly recommend She-Ra.
yep. So, this is all for this episode of The Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What did you think about the fourth season of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power? You can tell us all about that in the comment section below, on our Tumblr, which is known as Berkcast Team, and on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. So, with all that said, I was HC,
I've been Wolf.
and we will talk to you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.